all of our events with the Pledge of Allegiance, because as you guys are pledging your allegiance to America, I want you guys to know that what we're doing here today is also serving America. We are honoring America. We are getting involved in the things that we're called to as Americans and exercising our civic duty. So, for the first House Debrief, goodness gracious, there was so much that was going on. Right, laughing is an understatement at this point. So much that was going on, that it was very hard to condense this all down into a presentation for you guys without having you drop over in your seats dead, because there was literally that much that was happening. So before we get started into everything, I do just want to clarify some things right off the bat. Right off the bat, just a disclaimer, some of the graphics that I'm using inside of this presentation do not necessarily belong to me, but they are license-free graphics that are available on the web. The pictures of the elected officials, they are used appropriately for this presentation, and none of the character pictures are to depict any person or any party affiliation. Also, this presentation belongs to Remnant Impact. The training and information that's provided is based on personal research, experience, and of course public knowledge. And then again, this presentation will be recorded for educational purposes, so I do want to ask if you have any questions to hold off until the end, and we'll have a microphone available so that way we can get your questions answered as well. But like I said, there was so much that was going on. I want to try to not keep you here forever with me. Now, again, as we're going through the presentation, I want to make sure that you guys are understanding everything that I'm saying. So just to start off, we're going to go through some jargon. When we say BDR, that stands for Bill Draft Request. And we'll kind of go over that in a little bit. But that's the Bill Draft Request. Ultimately, that's what every bill in legislation is. It's only a request. No bill that's being put forth is actually law yet, which is why we have the opportunity to engage in our legislation so that we can either stop that bill from going forward or promote that bill for going forward. Next is the Assembly Bill, AB. So when we're looking at the different bills, you have the AB, and then you have SB, and you have SJR, and et cetera. So AB stands for an Assembly Bill. That is the House that brought forth that bill. SB, Senate Bill, that's the House that brought forth that bill. Joint resolution, that's something where Senate and Assembly comes together, and they make a resolution to pass forth. These resolutions are constitutional amendments. And we'll touch base on that in a little bit. But tabled, when we're talking about a bill being tabled, right, it means that it was purposefully stopped. It was being suppressed, or that bill just ended. Gutted means that the original intent of the bill has completely changed, and now this bill is a whole different bill altogether. Defeated or died, the bill didn't pass the committee. It didn't move into the next chamber, so therefore it's not moving on into legislation. And first House, when we talk about first House, like we're doing the first House debrief, that means we're talking about the bills that came out of the origin, right? So again, if the bill starts with an A, it came out of the Assembly House. So that was the first House for that bill was in the Assembly versus first House for an SB bill would have came out of the Senate bill, or Senate House. Does that make sense? So then when we move into second House, that means that these bills are now moving into the opposite chambers. So, just so that you guys understand where we're at, and you might have a better understanding of what we're fighting and where we're at in this battle, we're going to talk about the legislative process really quick. So, with that, again, the BDR, Bill Draft Request. Anybody can submit a bill draft request. It can be either by a legislator, it can be by a lobbyist, it can be by you as a person, right? So it starts with the request, it starts with the idea. Then it will be, oops, I went one too many. Then it'll go into its first reading. If it passes in its first reading, it will receive a number. That's where we get AB1, SB1, right? And then it gets put into the committee. Now we have all different committees. You have the Committee of Education, and you got Commerce, and you got Health and Human Services, and et cetera. That bill has to be under a certain committee. Now this legislative session, we saw that there is a new committee that was brought forth, and that was the end of life Care Committee is the new one. But again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Then after the committee, it goes to a committee hearing. That committee hearing is where we all get to attend. We get to attend the committee hearing. We get to be able to communicate what, if we're in support or in opposition of any of these bills. And that's really where, everything that we do as far as emails, as far as voting, as far as calling in your testimony or being present, even if you don't talk, just being in a chair is ever so important. That all gets packaged together in this bill. So that is where we have the biggest influence. Now, after the committee hearing, they'll normally go into work sessions. They're going to talk about the bill. They're going to talk about any amendments and et cetera. And then this is where it comes to a vote if it's going to be voted out of committee. If it gets voted out of committee, then what happens is it'll be up for a floor vote. This is where it'll come back to all of legislation. It'll go for its second reading, and any of the amendments that have been made during work sessions, this is where they can be approved into the bill. And then after that, it goes to a floor vote, and then that's where we're going to see if it actually passes or not. Now, after it passes, so what we were at April 11th, right there, was the deadline for the bills to come out of committee. Any bills that didn't come out of committee automatically died, right? But any of the bills that did come out of committee, they then had to go to that last that last little circle right there to be put on at a floor vote. Not all of the bills ended up being voted in to move on to the second house. Does that make sense? So after all the bills that did move out of second house, then that one is going to go into the second house, and we repeat the whole process all over again, with the exception of introducing, getting a number. It's already in committee. It just switches house committees, but it's going to go through its committee hearings, work sessions, and then it'll go for amendments and votes and etc. Now, from this point, after this is where you have two different paths. Well, actually, you have three different paths that we give you right here, right? For anything that was a JR, which was a joint resolution, those joint resolutions, they have to pass 2 consecutive legislative terms, right? So that does not ever get to the hands of the governor. But on the other side, if a bill, an ABSB, ends up having no amendments, all amendments are approved, then it's going to go straight down to Governor Lombardo, and he's going to be able to pass it, veto it, or he can actually do nothing with it. If there is amendments, then what will happen, if the second house makes amendments to the first house bill, then that bill is going to go back to the first house for it to be reconciled. It's like if I make something myself, and I give it to Miss Dorsey, and Miss Dorsey decides to change it, well, you don't get to change my work and give it over to Miss Helen. It's going to have to come back to me, and I'm going to have the approval for that before it gets to Miss Helen. Does that make sense? Okay, once that happens, then again, the governor can veto, or he can, nope. What happened? Oh. Okay, so that's where we're at right there. So again, the governor can sign a bill and it'll allow it to become law, or he cannot sign the bill and it will still become law within 30 days. So not all of the bills does the governor have to sign. Now, he can also veto a bill, but what could happen is that bill could go back over to legislation, and that veto then can be vetoed with 2/3 vote of each house. And that's an important thing for us to talk about. I want to put a pin in that. Now, on the other side, for the resolution, if it passes that second consecutive legislative term, then what happens is that gets put onto your ballot, and that has to pass 2 consecutive election terms. So that'll be a ballot question. And again, we'll talk about all of this as well. Okay, so now, when we're talking about legislation, here's the timeline. February 3rd started legislation. From February 3rd to March 24th, we saw 1,227 BDRs be entered into legislation, which is a crazy amount of bills for a group of free people. right? Then we have from April 22nd, that was the first, and 1,093 BDRs actually received numbers and entered into committee. Then from April 22nd, we ended up seeing that there was 281 BDRs that were defeated in the first House. And now we roughly have about 800 BDRs that are still in House, and they're still alive, but we have about 40 days left of legislation. So moving forward, everything from here on out is going to go so incredibly quickly and very rapidly. So as we're breaking down first House, I just want to give you guys a good idea of what is happening here. So our Nevada legislature is a bicameral legislature. We have 63 members of legislators. 42 of them are assembly, which is made up of 27 Democrats and 15 Republicans, while 21 are senates, and they are made up of 13 Democrats and 8 Republicans. And that's important for you guys to know, because as of right now, Democratic lawmakers have the final say over which bills had a hearing and which ones were put up for a committee vote, right? Ultimately, they have the power to move bills forward and not. And so how did we fare as far as first House goes? Well, if you can look at this graphic right here, we didn't fare too well. So Democrats were actually able to pass 332 of their own bills forward, while Republicans, we only were able to pass 89 bills forward, and 133 were not able to meet the deadline. So what we're looking at right now is, this is Assembly Steve Yeager. He's of District 9. He is also the Speaker of the House, and he had 20 out of 20 of his bills pass through. Meanwhile, we have Carrie Buck of Senate District 5, and she had 20 of her bills die. So they didn't pass any of her bills forward. Now, I do want to just take a minute just to put a pin in this right here. So if you guys did not know, and we've been working on this since about January, if you guys didn't know, our Clark County School District, they, in December of this last year, they put forth a new policy that closed the Clark County School District libraries. So as community members or as parents, you don't have the ability to access your public school library to see what books are available in the libraries, right? So we talked with Carrie, and we're like, hey, this is what we have. We have a petition going forth for CCSD. What are your thoughts on this? She loved the idea. She adopted a BDR for us, right? And so her BDR was to open, and by the way, if you guys didn't know, Clark County is the only county in all of Nevada that has a closed library system. We are the only one, right? And so she put forth a bill that would open up the libraries and make all of the library materials, curriculums, all available in a public catalog that is easily accessible. Now, that sounds like a great idea, right? Transparency, everything that we want. Well, we can expect that there was major opposition from the other side when they caught wind of what was happening. And so this is a tale. Oops, we just talked about that, sorry. This is a tale right here of good versus evil. So we have the good bill that creates transparency in CCSD, and then we have the bad bill, AB 416, that was produced by Brittany Miller. She is of Assembly District 5, and she closed the library, or her bill is to close the libraries and criminalize anybody who has any opposition against the books. Meanwhile, if you want to petition, or if you want to challenge any of the books that are inside of the CCSD libraries, then you'd have to go to a court. Here's the thing. No two bills can exist that contradict each other. At the end of this whole entire legislation, one of these bills was going to pass. And the one that passed is the one that had the most support or had the most power. Obviously, Carrie's didn't pass, right? And so Carrie didn't lose this bill, we did. Because we weren't as engaged, because we couldn't get the people, because we couldn't, even shake or rattle this bill in support of, we now have these kinds of bills that are available in your children's classrooms. Now, working with Karen England, if you guys don't know who she is, she actually is the owner of Take Back the Classrooms. And so myself and Lorena is over here. She's also a CCSD trustee, so she knows all about this. But with all of that to say, we're working on exposing the schools that have these kinds of books in them. So you can go to takebacktheclassroom.com and just see where we're at in Clark County. I think right now we have 3 schools that have available books that you're able to look at and read and just see the explicit materials that your kids are being exposed to. And this isn't just on a high school level. This isn't just on a junior high level. This is on an all level that is literally embedded into the curriculum of literature. Some of these books are required for book reports. That's where we're at right now. So with that said, another bill that Carrie had put forth that didn't quite make it is the SB 112, and that designates school athletic teams based on biological sex. Now, that would make sense, wouldn't it? If you're a boy, play with the boys. If you're a girl, play with the girls. However, obviously, we know that there's a huge culture war that's happening, and again, this bill did not move forward. However, because we have brave elected officials, such as Stavros Anthony, he's our lieutenant governor, he put forth a Protect Women's Sports Task Force, right? And so because of the work that he was able to do, he was actually able to get the Nevada Interscholastic Activities Association, the NIAA, to remove a 2014 policy and implement a new one that would designate sports based off of sex. So that was a huge win. But let me tell you, that win did not come without sacrifice, because Stavros had actually put forth 3 bills. SB 5 extended the provisions for the Office of the Small Business Affairs, and SB 55 that would create grants for Nevada agricultural businesses to engage in tourism here, agritourism here. And AB 53 would literally mandate elementary schools to receive a certain amount of recess each school day. Because he took such a brave and bold stance for women's sports, the majority leader said they were not going to put forth any of his bills. All 3 of those bills died with not even a hearing or a vote. That is the political games that we have right now. And so I do just want to put this caveat out there, that local elections matter. They matter. We have to be engaged in this. We have still in the state of Nevada 90,000 Christians that are not even registered to vote. Our statistic percentage in Nevada is only 14% of Nevadans will actually vote in a local election. That is nothing. We could literally change the tide on all of this if we get out to vote. Now, I do just want to say this too, the importance of voting. For instance, in 2019, these 3 members, this is Brittany Miller, Howard Watts, and James Orenshaw, they put forth a bill. It's called AB 186, and this is for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. This was put forth as a bill, right? For those of you guys that don't know what the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is, this is different than the popular vote, okay? I do want to make that clear. Different than the popular vote, because what happens here is that there is 17 states that have all joined this compact, totaling, and this is for the presidential elections, by the way, totaling 209 electoral votes. What they were trying to do right here is they're trying to make it so that whoever's popular amongst these states, then that presidential candidate would get their vote. Does that make sense? I know, it's terrible. So I do just want to show this because this is the most recent map right here, just so you guys know. If you're looking at all those blue states, does anything look familiar? Well, I'll tell you, those are all the blue states that did not vote for Trump. They did not vote for the Trump, right? Did not vote for Trump. They did not vote for Trump. But if you, and I don't have this available, but this is just a side note, but if you look at the counties that had won Trump's vote, then all of those states should have turned blue, or all of those states should have turned red. But they didn't, they couldn't, because in their state law, it says that their electoral college was going to be voting for whoever the national popular vote was. Not whoever the popular vote in their state was. It was for their popular vote of all of these states. This is like a secret club that they put together, right? Oh, super complicated. So, anyways, this was put forth as a bill, and lo and behold, Governor Sisolak at the time, in 2019, he actually vetoed this. And he said that the compact could diminish the role of smaller states like Nevada in national electoral contests and force Nevada electors to side with whoever wins the national popular vote rather than the candidate Nevadans chose, right? Sisolak even vetoed this. But here it comes. Here's the importance of us being involved and voting. Because in 2023, they brought it back. Same people brought it back, except for they brought it back as a resolution. Now, why would they bring it back as a resolution? To avoid the veto. So that's what happened. So they brought it back and to avoid the veto, and it passed. In 2023, it passed the very first legislature. Now, that passed with, on the assembly, that was 27 yeses and 14 noes. And on the Senate, that was 12 yeses and 9 noes. Now, let me tell you, that was a party line vote. So we have one party that is trying to go rogue, and you have the other one that's trying to conserve what our founding principles are. Again, the importance of voting. However, I do believe that because of Trump's win, that this changed the whole entire landscape for this particular bill, because they said, no way. And they ended up not moving this forward at all, and this became a dead bill without any meetings or anything. Elections matter. And I do want to I bring this forth, even though it's a dead bill, I bring it forth because I want you guys to know that this could always come back. There's no bill that is officially dead. A lot of these bills get raised from the grave year after year after year. And so this is one of those bills that we just have to keep in our forefront and recognize if it comes back, this is danger all the way. All right, so then the next bill is the constitutional right to abortion at any point during pregnancy. This was SJR 7. This was another constitutional amendment. Now, this actually garnered a whole bunch of signatures from Nevada Reproductive Women's Rights. Nevada for Reproductive Women's Health. Thank you. Ooh, that was a blank. So they were able to garner enough signatures to actually put this question on the ballot. And because it got put on the ballot, I do believe that they just were like, hey, we don't need to have two bills, both constitutional amendments. And so this one is also one of the ones that they passed. Oh, of course I put a picture. Nevadans for Reproductive Freedom. That's what ended up putting forth. So I am going to put a little caveat on here right now as we move forward, that we do have question 6 training. So question 6 is the question that was on your 2024 ballot. It will be again on your 2026 ballot. And should this actually pass, this is going to embed abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy as a constitutional amendment, as a right for women, right? And so this bill is super risky. There's a lot of things that are bad in it. So what we're doing is we're partnering with Nevada Right to Life, and we're creating an ambassador program. And so in this ambassador program, not only are you going to be educated on what the bill says, what the truth of the bill is, what it actually means, but also we're looking for people to help spread that awareness, mainly through social media. So if that is something that you're interested in, I do have signups out at the table. So if you would like to sign up to be an ambassador, we will send you the materials, and all you have to do is post on it or share it or, I don't know, print it and hand it out, whatever you want. It's a bless and release kind of thing, right? Okay, so, and then of course, SGR 7, that one also had no further action. It didn't receive its hearing. So that is another one that is dead. And again, we are going to put full forth fight to defeating question 6 for that one. So let's talk about some pro-life wins, right? So we had some, I know those babies are so cute, right? I'll say this, AB 139, repealed the crime of terminating a pregnancy through performing certain acts after the 24th week of pregnancy, causing death to the unborn child. This was just a ridiculously heinous bill that went through. But The good thing is it never received a hearing. It didn't move out of committee, so that one is actually dead. The next one was AB 176 that established the Right to Reproductive Health Care Act. It prohibited a government entity from enacting or implementing any limitations or requirements that single out reproductive health care. Now, the thing with this bill is not only was it already wonky to begin with, but because of our awesome partners up north, they were able to talk with the sponsor of this bill and have it amended. So after the first hearing, we immediately got the good news that this bill was going to be amended, that the sponsor is now going to be taking out abortion altogether. So it has nothing to do with abortion, and it also has nothing to do with schools, right? So those were two huge amendments that were made into this bill. And so now this bill, I don't know if you can see that, but now this bill, this is what we call gutted because it got gutted. This bill is now called the Contraceptive and Family Planning Services Act. Has zero to do with abortion now. Zero. So that's a win. The next one is we have AB 101. This was a really threatening bill. This criminalized pregnancy centers for providing pro-life literature and services because they deemed it deceptive. It also criminalized doctors who prescribe, dispense, or administer the abortion reversal pill. This bill was so incredibly threatening, and I think that we did a good job of getting the information out to the public, that this became the third most participated bill in the month of April, garnering 1,307 people that were able to participate in this bill, with 1,292 in complete opposition. Now, because of the opposition, and I'm just going to put this out there. You guys have no idea how much power you really have when you engage in our legislature, right? They don't want to have the controversy. They don't want to. And especially coming up onto this next election, some of these people need to get out. And they have to rerun. And they're going to have to rerun going against what the people want or don't want. So this was a big thing. Anyways, what ended up coming of it is this bill also got completely gutted. Now, this bill got gutted to the point where it was now called deceptive business practices. And when we attended the hearing, just to make sure, because this is what happened, I got word up north. Melissa Cummint with Nevada Right to Life, she texted me. She's like, "Oh, it's great. They're gutting the bill. This is the new bill. It's wonderful." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I just don't know about that. I'm still going to go to the hearing," right? So we go to the hearing and we're listening to it. None of the amendments are available, but they had made the changes. They had gutted the bill the night before the hearing. And so I was like, okay, we're still going to go. So we go and we listen to it, and by golly, was that the most baloney bill. They're talking about deceptive practices when they're trying to put in a whole new bill under an already existing BDR with already existing popularity and already existing votes. So nonetheless, what's his name? Orrin Lichter, when he came out and he presented and it came down for public testimony, this bill, honestly, I'm so thankful for my friends up north, because if it wasn't for Melissa, I was ready to burn the whole place down, to be quite frank. I'm like, this is like worse than the AB 101, because now it completely is left up to interpretation, not just up to the Attorney General, but this is deceptive and this is deceptive. It was all about deceiving. And the reason why it stayed in the Health and Human Services Committee was because it can still apply to Health and Human Services. So it could still apply to pregnancy centers who provide pro-life literature, who you think is deceptive, and et cetera. So the whole ball was just keep going. And so anyways, with that, my face was red. I was all mad. And Melissa, she's just like, okay, yes, it looks bad, but I have word that it's not going to make it till Friday. And I'm like, can you promise me that? Because I'm about to lose my mind right now. And she's like, no, I'm pretty sure. So nonetheless, it was able to make it it didn't make it to Friday. So this bill actually didn't move on. The past bill and that current bill, it was just a mess. That was a mess to begin with. But all of that, again, to say that when we participate in these kind of things, you don't understand the movement that can happen, right? And I'll give you another example of this is AB 381. I don't know if you guys heard of the bulldog Reba, and what had happened to Reba. This actually was introduced by City Council. Victoria Seaman had introduced this law. She's a very pro-animal advocate, and this ended up failing in City Council, failed in County Commission, so it was brought in as a bill for legislators. Well, same thing. This bill was about to die. It wasn't going to move anywhere. And it didn't meet the deadline of April 11th, which was Friday. So then you know what happened? All of the animal advocates rose hell, and they went out to social media, and they totally had, this bill was going to increase animal penalties, expanding the penalty from 1 to 4 years to 10 years in prison, right? But because they weren't going to let it through, the animal advocates went totally out for the two sponsors of this bill, which was Brittany Miller and Elaine Marzola. And they went and they had petitions and everything, and they garnered so much that both of those girls had to go over oh crap, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Who's the chair? They had to go to Steve Yeager and Nicole Cannizzaro so that they can get a waiver for this bill so that it can actually move on to the second house, even though it never passed out of committee. Right? So because of the amount of publicity and because of the amount of action of this particular group they took that action, this bill is now able to move forward with 17 unpublished amendments, and now it gets to move into the second house. So that's the power that you have. That's the things that we can do collectively if we actually just get engaged, if we actually attend, if we actually make a big fuss about it, and we call out our legislators for not doing the jobs that we voted them in to do, right? It's possible. It's very possible. See, the power of the people is much stronger than the people in power. You just have to remember that. All right, so let's talk about some common sense defeated, because that was a lot. A lot of things that were good didn't end up passing through. Let's start off with transparency. Transparency right off the bat. AJR 2 would amend the Nevada Constitution to require the language of a bill or resolution be made public for at least 72 hours before a House may vote on the final passage of a bill or resolution. That would make sense because, by golly, they will make amendments and changes and then vote on it all within the same hour, and you have no say in that. This is transparency, but of course, they don't want that transparency, so this bill died. The next one, AJR 3 would amend the Nevada Constitution to hold legislators to the same provisions of law as any other government entity. Sounds like a good idea. Too good to be true, because they did not want that. Of course, our legislators don't want to be held to the same accountability as any other government entity because they are above the law in all things. I know, this is recorded. Don't unfollow me yet. Let's see. AB 33 establishes an inspector general. That was actually the Doge of Nevada, which would have been totally awesome, except for they didn't want it. So it never got a hearing. It never moved out of committee. I wonder why, exactly. AB 173 would have been super helpful as we're vetting people for elections, but that would require judges to reveal what political party they are affiliated with. And on another note, SJR 2 would have allowed voters to choose whether to retain the judge or not. If more picked do not retain, then judges would not keep the job even if they were running unopposed, which would have been helpful so that we don't have, yeah, I wonder. Another election defeat was proof of ID to vote in Nevada. This is such a, I know, it's so silly because, listen, the fact of the matter is that over 80% of all Americans on both sides of the spectrum, Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter, agree that we need to have identification in voting places. And also 83% also agree that we need to prove some sort of citizenship. Now, on another note that's not in my slideshow, I was actually just recently reading this today, is that there's like, I don't know, if we were to remove all of the illegals in all of America, we would gain 17 more seats. That is how much we are being outvoted by illegal immigrants. And so it's no wonder why the majority of all America, despite your political affiliation, agrees that we need to have voter ID, but somebody tell that to our legislators. Anywho, SB 73 allows any person to view a registered voter signature at the office of the county or city clerk. Now, I know that this probably sounds not the greatest, and I know because I've had some people bring up their concerns about this. This is actually a solid, great bill. This was a great bill. I run election integrity down here in Clark County, and so I bring out a team to the elections department where they have had the ability to view voter signatures. Now, what a voter signature looks like on the screen looks just like this. There's no information. If you can read that, awesome. Otherwise, I don't know who that person is. I don't know what their real name is. I don't know their address. I don't know their phone number. I have no idea what they look like or their political affiliation. I have nothing. All that we do when we're in voter signature verification, when we're in that room observing, that is what we see. In 2023, I had endless reports of violations that were happening in the voter signature verification room. That would be, somebody so-and-so told them that they did not need to use the second laptop to cross-reference all of their signatures on record. In the manual signature verification room at Clark County Elections Department, I observed election workers go on their phone while simultaneously verifying signatures, because that's exactly what was happening. They would sit here and click a button while engaging in conversations with you. They weren't looking at those signatures. But you know who could see them at the time? We could. And we saw those signatures passing that were not the same. What happened in 2024, right, we're in 2024. What happened in 2024 is they flipped the tables. So then now we can't see, because we bombarded the Secretary of State with so many election violations that they switched the roles and they flipped it. So now we can't see what they're doing. Now we don't see what's on the screen. This right here would be correlated to everything that we were filing against. And that didn't pass. SB 103, that one is mail ballots must be postmarked and received by day of voting and cannot be counted without postage or if delivered by deadline. Does that not seem like a common sense bill? Do we really need 10 days to count our votes? It's ridiculous. We have votes that are coming in 10 days after the election is already done, and they're still counting them. This would have prevented that. But of course, that's not what's on their agenda. All right, education defeats, right? So SB 59, revoke teaching license for those found guilty of grooming or sexual impropriety. Is that common sense? Okay, because that got defeated. That didn't make it. In fact, actually, where's Lorena? So we were sitting at a school board meeting, and I don't know, what was that? The education legislative liaison? What was it? No, who was the guy? No, like his position. Anyways, he was doing a legislative update at one of the school board meetings. He's like a education legislative liaison, something like that. Anyways, he was talking, and Lorena had asked, okay, but where do you stand on SB 59? And you know what his answer was? His answer is, we don't have a stance. Yes, they did not take a position on either or. That is where your kids are going to school, by the way. And shout out to Lorena for rocking the CCSD. She's fighting for your kids when nobody else is. Anyways, all right, SB 112, we talked about that one. That was the biological sex for school. Wait, what? Biological sex, yeah, for sports teams. I need coffee. SB 248. That one makes school libraries and materials and curriculum publicly available via the digital catalog. That one, obviously, we talked about as well. All of those ended up dying. So let's move on to the second house. So what is it that we have to look forward to? What is it that we're fighting forward on? So I'm going to say that there was so much, and again, I have to condense this down. I wish that we could talk on every single bill, because I think I was reading this, I want to say it was in the Nevada Globe, an article that was talking about how this legislation is literally just a culture war. This is such a culture war. In 2023, when we were doing legislation, it was very easy for me to stay in my lane, right? I focused on the bills that, violated your constitutional rights, your parental rights, your right to defend yourself, biblical values. That was all easy to stay in. Going into this legislation, everything is like woven together, and it's overwhelming to the point where it's like, I don't even know what to touch on, because there's like a hand of deception in everything. It's wild. But for the sake of time, we're just going to touch on some things that are going for, some good, some bad, and kind of get just an idea of, what it is that we're looking for in the lay of our land. Right? Okay, so start on off with business and economics. So AB 185 would bar most HOAs from prohibiting licensed home-based childcare operations within their communities, which means that we're going to have more childcare available within our communities. Then you have AB 187, that would ban retail pet sales statewide, which is not a bad thing. AB 388 would require almost all private and public sector employees to give their workers 12 weeks of paid family leave, with the amount of money paid out depending on the employee's salary. This kind of goes hand in hand with what Trump is trying to do, as well as our population is declining, and declining quickly. The most recent that I saw is that we're at about a 1.6 children per woman is where we're at, which is below the reproduction rate. Basically, if we continue on the path that we're at, we're all just going to extinct. Earth will outlive us, even though they think that we're going to outlive Earth. Let's see. Okay, these are two fun ones. So AB 185 is Nevada Studio Infrastructure Jobs and Workforce Training Act. This is going to massively expand the state's film tax credit program to support a production studio here in Summerlin. Yeah. Where are we at? Oh, good call. Okay. I don't know off the top of my head. One of them is, one of them's not. So, we're going to go here, and we're going to scratch off AB 185 until I can update you on whatever that bill is. It might be it, and it might not. But for that particular Nevada Studio Structured Jobs of Workforce Training Act, that is what they want to do they want to expand the state's taxes, which is obviously paid by you and me, so that we can have a studio here in Summerlin. And then SB 222, hopefully if that's the right number, that is Nevada Film Infrastructure for Workforce Development, Education, and Economic Diversification Act, and that is also to expand the state's film tax credit in Southwest Las Vegas. So in case you guys didn't know, Hollywood is coming to Vegas, and everything that comes with Hollywood is also coming to Vegas. So if you want to know more about those two, and I'm glad that I added this slide because maybe you guys can double check my work on this, but you can visit don'thollywoodmynevada.com, and they have great resources on how to testify against this bill, how to write your legislators, and it gives you more information about why this is just not a good thing to have here in Nevada. All right, so then we have education. So things that are happening in education. AB 205, it makes sex education mandatory in public schools unless the parent opts the child out. Now, currently, it is opts the child in. So when your child comes home with a permission slip or comes home and says, hey, Mom, I want to take sex education, you can sign the permission slip for your kid to go to class. Now, they reversed it. Now your kid is automatically going to be put in sex education class, and then you have to opt them out. That is where that bill right there is. Then we have AB 328, which establishes a commission through the Nevada Board of Regents on racial equity and social justice. And the whole purpose for them is to study historical discrimination and devise possible methods of restitution. That is the purpose of that commission. Then we have SB 174. This one is a good one. It'll allow children with the autism spectrum disorder to receive medically necessary applied behavior analysis therapy in the school setting. That was one that was specifically asked for me to follow because of the nature of her child. And so that's a good one. It did move forward. It has a lot of great support on that one. Keep going. Let's see, we have AB 445. This requires the Department of Education and State Library Archives Administration to develop a model policy around book bans. And that includes creating an appointed committee to review requests to remove material from a library. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the AB 416, where our legislators are trying to make it to where you will not be able to ban any books. And you cannot ban these books, they say, for discrimination reasons based off of race, sex, sexual orientation, sexual identity, gender identity, and et cetera, and et cetera. And so because those are also labeled into the discrimination, then they believe that they have a foot to stand that says you cannot take these off the shelves. Now, in the same breath, they also won't allow you to read any of these books out loud either at the school libraries or at the legislatures or anywhere, because they don't want to hear the vulgarity that is involved in these books, but they do want to require your child to read it for educational purposes. It is very double-mindedness. It's very hypocritical, and it's very dangerous for your kids to be exposed to this, no matter what age, whether they're in junior high or high school or even in elementary school. It's completely inappropriate. Their minds are not completely developed until they're in their 20s. So whatever it is that they're reading into, whatever fantasies and imaginations that are happening in their brain is going to alter who they are, how they think, and how they perceive the world. And that is not a good place to be if you're reading those books. Those books not only are sexually explicit, but some of those are very graphic in detail of how to kill yourself. There is a lot of mental health that goes into these books that can be really damaging for kids. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There is an adopted amendment to this that grants staff members immunity from criminal liability if they assist students in accessing these library and school materials. So at least, staff members, you won't be criminalized. But if any of you decide to show up, and you will be criminalized for that. And then so again, AB 416, that closed the CCSD libraries. It criminalizes the community members, librarians, CCSD trustees for objecting to certain books being available in CCSD school libraries. And if you wanted to challenge it, you would no longer be able to challenge it. And this is what, if you wanted to challenge a book, this is essentially the paper that you would fill out to challenge a book. And now you won't have to challenge a book through the school district or through the school anymore. You wouldn't have to challenge that through your principals. You would now have to petition the court. That is where they're at. They're removing themselves completely, and then they say, take it up with the law. Take it up with the courts. Go sue me. And if you don't, it's a felony. Yes. So when we say criminalizes, we legitimately mean that they're criminalizing you if you're standing against this stuff. Okay, another weird one. AB 464 criminalizes the suspension or termination of staff members based on political affiliation. How would anybody know your political affiliation if you weren't taunting it around in your classroom? And if you are a parent and your teacher is taunting your child for their political affiliation, you would not be able to put forth any charges or make any complaints against them. So this is a completely not a good bill all around. AB 464, that criminalizes the suspension. Oh, I just said that one, I'm sorry. AB 441 would require a scholarship organization to use donations for which a tax credit received under the program be used within 18 months. This kind of goes within the school choice for those people who are donating money for scholarships to kids going to different areas. That is going to limit them down to where you have this money, you have to use it within 18 months. And if you're not going to use it within 18 months, then you have to pay the tax credits on it back. And then we have Governor Lombardo. This one doesn't have a bill number yet. This one doesn't have a bill number yet, but this one is his Nevada's Accountability in Education Act. And for this one right here, it has 4 main points. One, he wants to raise the bar for schools and districts. He wants to encourage open enrollment policies and provide transportation to make education choice more available, and create excellence in education fund to reward teachers by implementing a merit pay system while also addressing the lagging early literacy rates. So as this bill continues to move forward, we'll figure out what the number is and any other amendments that will be added to it. But I'll tell you this, in last session when he tried to put a similar bill through, legislators completely gutted the bill and it became nothing. It became nothing. So as much as this all sounds wonderful and groovy and awesome, it's really up to the legislators because, again, they are the ones that are moving everything around. And if they're going to gut this out, they can take it out and put anything else forth, and it'll be up to Lombardo to really veto his own bill. That's where he was at last legislative session, and we'll see what happens this time around as well. All right, some child protection ones that have gone through. SB 263, that expands prohibitions relating to pornography involving minors. This is going to include generated, like AI generation for pornography. This is going to increase penalties for certain crimes relating to the porn involving minors, which is a good one. We also have the next one, which is going to be AB 35, and this is as amended, and it changes the definition of pornography with a minor to child sex abuse materials. And they did this so that it'll make it actually easier to prosecute people who create or distribute this kind of material. And then SB 63, this is going to require parental or legal guardian consent for a minor to use social media platforms. Is that not clicking? Sorry, there we go. I'm operating 2 machines. Okay, so there we go. Now let's get down to the elections. So moving forth for the elections, we have AB 287. Nope. Whoa. Okay, I don't know why that says AB 420, because on my computer, it says AB 287. I'm not sure what happened there. The paper says 287? Great. So if I move, I know, so I don't know what happened there. Victor, were you on my computer? That's a possibility. That's my husband over there. Anyways, follow my voice. AB 287, that one is for Voter Access Grant Program, and that creates an unaccountable election slush fund under the control of the Secretary of State. This program would allow the Secretary of State to distribute taxpayer dollars to eligible entities. For instance, voter outreaches, or education, or functions carried out by partisan organizations. So there's going to be this little slush fund where the Secretary of State can be like, hey, you can go out and do a voter drive over here, or you do a voter drive over here. By the way, like towards the end of last year, Republicans were up by like 4 voter registrations. We're not anymore. So now we're back. Now the Democrats are back to being the most represented in Nevada. So after legislation is done, we are going to hit that and make sure that we go out and try to get everybody that we know registered to vote. Because it'd be nice if we can get some grants for that. We'll see. Anywho, SB 422. This is going to allow people with out-of-state license to vote in our elections using provisional ballots. Now, I will say that this is actually already so as of right now, because you can register to vote with an out-of-state license. What this is now going to do is be that you don't have to register to vote. You can show up with your license, get a provisional ballot, and do your voter registration all at the same time. Does that make sense? So you can come in from California, go to the DMV, because that's also going to be extended hours during election seasons, and you can walk in and say, I need to register to vote, but I'm not going to change my driver's license over. They have to register to you to vote. Also, by the way, they're also making it illegal to ask for your birth certificate to prove your citizenship, but that's another case. Anyway, you can go to the DMV, show them your driver's license, get registered to vote, go and vote on the same day, and that vote will become provisional. Now, provisional is a nice word where we like to think, oh, well, they're going to do their investigative work and they're going to, see that this person doesn't really live here. That's baloney. That is such baloney. The truth is that we don't know what happens with those votes because they get put into a special pile, and that is delegated by special people who is hired by a special person. We're never going to see that. So this, all in all, is not a good bill. A utility bill or proof that you're a resident. They don't have to do that. Yep. Yep. That's exactly it. So they could vote twice. Yeah, they can vote here in Nevada and vote there in California. Yeah. SB 100, it's going to give the power to the Secretary of State and the Attorney General to remove city clerks and replace them with appointed people. Now, keep in mind your city clerks are people that are voted in by you, the people. And what they're saying is that if you don't do the job that we tell you to do, then we are going to remove you and we will put in the people that we want. That's how that's going. And there we go. SB 102 prohibits a person from filing or submitting certain documents related to election fraud. This is like a direct threat to me. As I do election integrity, I am the person that they want to silence. Myself and many others, I work with a group of people and we do all sorts of fun things. I've got, a couple lawsuits against the state, one that's sitting right now in the 8th Circuit, but what they're essentially trying to do is to silence any of the fraud. And let me tell you, as somebody who has seen it inside and out, there is definitely fraud. If you guys did not know, Nevada is actually ranked second to last in election integrity. The last one actually is Hawaii, but we are the second to last in election integrity. So we do not fare well when it comes down to our elections, and the fact that we're just asking for integrity or transparency means that we could be silenced and even criminalized. That's where we're at on that. AB 148 requires a deadline for distributing mail ballots and sample ballots a certain number of days before an election to people who reside in the state no later than the 4th Monday of the election. During this last election, how many of you guys did not get your sample ballots? Okay, so as I was going out talking during the election, I was out in Boulder City, and they're like, but we don't have our sample ballots. This was the day after early voting. And they never even got their sample ballots. I said, what do you mean you didn't get your sample ballots? I said, who didn't get their sample ballots? All of Boulder City didn't get their sample ballots. All of people in Henderson didn't get their sample ballots. People, if you live down in Southern Highlands, you did not get your sample ballots. You got your ballot before you got your sample ballot. So what we did, and again, election integrity, is I made every single person in Boulder City and in Henderson and whoever I came in contact with fill out an election integrity violation form, and we're sending that bad boy in because that is withholding election information. So this one is especially for me, to make me quiet. Okay, so now we're getting into the firearms. Now we're starting to get into the more of the nitty gritty. AB 105 prohibits firearms from being within 100 feet of election polls. This was also a bill that was introduced in 2023 as well, and this is also another dangerous bill. So while this sounds great, just keep in mind legislation likes to romanticize things to make you think that it actually is a good thing, but really it's not a good thing. Because what happens in an election poll, and again, election integrity, is when you go to vote, and maybe you guys have experienced this. This was especially prominent during 2022's election, where you would go in and you would give your card, or they would give you the card to put into the machine. And as they would give you your card, whoever is helping you would say, oh, Republican, and they would move you to this side. Oh, Democrat, and they would move you to this side. Who experienced that? So a couple of you. How wonderful is it that you guys are law-abiding citizens and you go over to the left-hand side not carrying your firearm, where the person behind you is not a law-abiding citizen following right behind you and knows on this side of the line is all of those wacky conservatives. That is a problem. Not only is that portion of the problem, because that takes away your right to defend yourself, but also within election polls, what is considered an election poll? Are we talking about the machines, or are we talking about the drop boxes? Because here at this church, at Calvary Red Rock, I will always have a drop box here during all the elections. But you can't tell me that I'm not going to have my firearm right next to me either. So that has a lot of issues with it. Again, this was vetoed. Governor Lombardo is really good about vetoing a lot of these firearm bills because they do infringe on your Second Amendment right. But this just goes to show, whether it gets vetoed or not, that this is what the legislators are trying to do, and they are trying to strip you of your rights. And this is a big one. SB 89 also prohibits the purchase, possession, or ownership of a firearm for 10 years by a person who has been convicted of a hate crime. Sorry. Now, again, while that might sound wonderful and awesome, the interpretation of what a hate crime is subjective. And so, you better hope that you're not the father following in the man who's following in your daughter into that bathroom where you have to beat him to a pulp, and now you don't have a firearm for 10 years because you just beat up a guy of mental illness. Right? You better hope that it's not you at the abortion clinic who is, rallying for life, and now you've got hate speech on you, right? So the interpretation of hate crime is very subjective, and because of the political interpretation of it, it's no good. It's no good, and especially as they're adding in more phases of gender or of discrimination, more identities of discrimination. Okay, AB 245, that would restrict anyone under 21 from owning or handling certain types of firearms. That actually is any shotguns or center rifles. So anybody who's under the age of 21 will not be able to handle either of those two guns. However, you can join the military, and you can have a beer. Well, actually, you can't have a beer, but you can smoke a cigarette. So, yes. Shot fun? Of course. So definitely, if you're under 21, you do not need to be having any shot funds. Thank you for catching all my errors, you guys. Okay. Thank you for reading. All right, AB 119, that would allow the Attorney General to investigate any paramilitary activity. Unfortunately, here at the church, if you come to Red Rock, then you might have seen some of our security guys. They do walk around in full vests and with their firearms out. They would be considered paramilitary activity, and therefore we could be investigated by the Attorney General, and we can be criminalized as well. This would also go into any of the Jewish schools, Jewish mosques, synagogues that have any sort of security that's out. If it's anything as paramilitary, they can come in and investigate. Now, I do want to say this is also a huge violation of your Second Amendment. Not only do you have the right to bear arms, but you have the right to establish a militia. That is granted in your Second Amendment. So if we at the church, or if you at your school or your work, or even in your community, in your own neighborhood cul-de-sac, and you're like, hey, neighbor, you've got a gun, great. We are going to band together for a militia. You have that right. And the Attorney General cannot do anything about that. Neither can they do anything about it here. We will always have the right to defend ourselves, and we will always have the right to carry arms, period. So this is a highly infringed bill that's going through. SB 156, this creates an office under the Attorney General called the Prevention of Gun Violence. That uses taxpayer money. This office can also apply and receive gifts and contributions from personal, private, or public agencies. You know, I think maybe if AB 33 were to pass, where we could have the Inspector General, aka Doge, come in, I wouldn't mind having this particular office in play. But the fact that we don't have that, and there's no auditing, and there's no transparency, then that just tells me that all of these gifts and contributions from other entities or agencies are going to be coming and sitting at the Attorney General's office. And where is that going to be going? It has totally been a statistic. I mean, you could look this up anywhere, but states that have the stricter gun laws, they have the most crimes. And we don't need any more than what we already have here. So another bad bill. SB 347 allows a police officer to confiscate a firearm of a person under mental duress. I do want to say that an amendment was added to this to where the person is able to retrieve their firearm after being released from treatment. And so this bill is now focused on, the content of this bill is for people who are experiencing mental illness, such as suicide, where they want to kill themselves. If a police officer were to, get to them in time, they can take their firearm. They obviously get admitted into a mental health hospital for 72 hours, whatever. Upon release of their treatment, they can pick up their firearm. So this is a protective bill. I'm all for it. This wasn't as originally intended. I was against it. With the amendment, I'm for it, because as long as people have the right to have their firearms and be able to use them appropriately, then that's okay in my book. All right, now we're going into medical. Whew. Okay, so SB 217, that establishes the right to IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, and that is going to be paid through Medicaid, aka you as the taxpayers. This particular bill actually denies what a human being is, and it says it in Section 10. So Section 10 of this bill, even though this bill has been amended, this section has actually stayed. Any fertilized human egg or human embryo that exists in any form before implantation in the uterus of a human body is not an unborn child, a minor child, a person, a natural person, or any other term that connotates a human being for any purpose under the law or regulation of this state or any political subdivision thereof. Listen, this is a very controversial bill, and I get it. Because, again, we are low on reproduction. We need more babies. We need more humans in this planet, which is awesome. And the fact that people want to have families and have babies is totally inspiring, given that we're in a culture of anti-child. But this is not the way to do it. When it comes down to IVF, it will take anywhere from 9 to 11 fertilized eggs, 9 to 11, at which you may only use 1, maybe 2. That means the other 8 or 9 are either frozen or destroyed. We are killing life to have a life. That is not what the intention of reproduction was by God. That was not his design. And so this has very big moral and ethical issues to it. And any bill that tries to come forward and say that an embryo is not a human, that is right off the bat wrong. Now, I don't know about you ladies, but if it's not a human, I don't want that injected into me either. I don't need anything like that. So anyways, this was a very hard bill to go against, but again, the moral and ethical issues that are behind it. AB 411, that allows prescription drugs for medical abortions to conceal the identity of the prescribing doctor. Instead, they're going to actually name the clinic. So now when you receive your abortion pill, it's not going to say Dr. Dorsey. It's going to say Planned Parenthood on it. So now we are not going to know who the doctor is that's prescribing it. So if anything were to happen and there's any repercussions to taking that pill, you also don't know who the doctor is that you're supposed to reach out to, or if you need to, file lawsuits against. AB 235 allows for the reproductive health care and gender-affirming health care providers to conceal information on their legal documents, including their driver's license. So again, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you have no reason to hide. You have no reason to shield yourself or conceal yourself or your identity. And these two bills, both right here, are trying to protect these healthcare providers, quote unquote, so that nobody can find them, you can't see them, you don't know what they're doing, there's no transparency, there's no accountability, and God forbid anything bad happen, you're not going to be able to pursue lawsuits because all of their information is now concealed. Okay, AB 20, this allows the DMV to adopt individual symbols or codes for different medical conditions to appear on your license and be stored in a database accessible to law enforcement and other agencies. Some of those would include diabetes, epilepsy, food allergies, sickle cell disease, hemophilia, schizophrenia, depression, mental illness, and so much more. So now, if you were to get pulled over, your officer is going to immediately know what is your health conditions are, and they're going to be able to respond as needed. This could be a good thing. Definitely if you're having an episode and you need help, sure. But it can also be a bad thing because as a police officer, you're already preparing yourself for the worst, let alone if you have to check an ID that says that they are schizophrenic or they have mental depression or anything else. It sets them up for defense already, which is going to make a very bad altercation and encounter. SB 171 enacts a shield law to protect gender-affirming healthcare providers in the transgender community. This one right here, if you guys remember the SB 131, that was the similar thing, except for it had to do with abortion. Now they're trying to do it for the transgender community. This is the second most participated bill in Nellis. So the third one was AB 101 that had to do with the pregnancy centers. This one is the second most, and it has the most support. I didn't provide that picture, I should have. But this one has like 200 people in opposition and another 1,200 people in support of. And what this bill would essentially do, we would make Nevada a sanctuary state so that all of these kinds of doctors would be coming through into Nevada so that they can practice. And it would limit the governor's ability to extradite. It would limit, thank you, Kelly Quinn. It would limit the governor's ability to extradite any of the doctors that were coming through here that have malpractices in other states. This would be what would be called a sanctuary city for that. AB 346, this is going to legalize assisted suicide in Nevada. This is also another one that was brought in 2023. It was also vetoed at the time. This is a terrible bill. Thankfully, with the veto in 2023, Governor Lombardo has also said that he's going to veto it again. He actually encouraged legislators, don't even move it past the first house. I'm not going to sign it, which is awesome. But this is where we're at for the first house. So in the first house, there's 23 legislators that said yes and 19 that said no, that voted against it. And ironically enough, 2 of our Republicans moved over to the Democrat side, while 6 of the Democrats moved over to the Republican side. Now, all of this to say, because this is where we're at when it comes down to this bill, and we don't know what's going to happen in the Senate, but this is the perfect example of vetoing the governor's veto. Because this could move all the way through, and Governor Lombardo, he'll veto it, but if there's enough people to veto his veto, and we already see that there's 2 of our Republicans that flip for this bill, then they could veto his veto, and then this would be put into law. Does that make sense? So those are the things that we want to look at also when we're looking at bills, as who's voting for these bills and who's voting against them. Because as somebody who's going to represent me, I want them to represent me right. And if you're not going to, then we need to get them out, right? All right, you guys are champions. We're almost done. Housing. Let's just take a look at housing. AB 201 would expand efforts to automatically seal eviction records. AB 223, that would hold landlords accountable for failing to provide livable conditions. AB 280, that would be rent stabilization for seniors. AB 283, that would restructure the eviction process. So if you're one of those people who have houses and rent them out, this is probably not going to be a good bill for you. This is Governor Lombardo's AB 540, and what this is supposed to do, what this bill is going to do is it's going to allocate $250 million to build more housing and expand the definition of affordable housing to include people with higher incomes. And that's not necessarily high, but we're seeing that the median between low income, medium income, and high income families are starting to change to where those medium income families that are sitting on the lower end are going to need more of the help, but can't get the help because they're not considered low income. So anyways, that's going to revamp this to that. And building more housing and building more housing, I know Governor Lombardo is trying to get Trump to release some of that federal land so that we can build on it. So another one to watch out for. We'll see what happens. Previous slide for Republicans versus Democrats. Oh, good catch on that. Oh, that's really sad. So we lost 3 Republicans to that bill. So that's where we're at on that. And again, we could change this. This literally, we can do things administratively from the comfort of our own home just by either voting on the bill, emailing your legislators. We are going to have a second chance of going to hearings, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But attending the hearings, submitting testimony into exhibits, those are all things that we can do from the comfort of our own home. If you feel like being that little keyboard warrior and you want to blast them on social media, do it. Do it, because right now in the era that we're in, people are getting more of their news information from social media than they are getting it from medias. So utilizing your social medias to call these people out, go for it. Yeah, it's a great thing. Oops, whoa. Sorry. Where am I? Okay, AJR 1 amends Nevada Constitution to remove the property tax cap. So this is definitely something that we need to vote no on. And again, if this passes through this legislation, it's going to be brought back on the next legislation. So we'll have another chance to defeat this in legislation, but what they're trying to do is to remove that tax cap so that they can continue to hike up your taxes on your property. Oh, I know. California 101, yep. All right, so some miscellaneous things just for fun. AB 81 removes Nevada from daylight savings time. I know a lot of people are like, no, we want to be on daylight savings time. That would be awesome, but that's actually not federally possible. We can't be stuck on federal or a daylight savings time until Trump makes that executive order. After that, we'll see what happens. But as of right now, that right now passed out of first house, and we'll see what that looks like in second house. SB 6 gives $600,000 for the fiscal year of 2025 to Nevada System of Higher Education to support Nevada State Cloud Seeding Program. For anybody who tells you that there's no such thing as chemtrails or that the beautiful designs in the sky is not fake, they're lying to you. They have no idea what they're talking about, because this is exactly what that is trying to fund, is so that we have more clouds in the sky. So not good. And then also we have AB 144, which makes the second Monday of October Indigenous Peoples Day, which that would replace Columbus Day. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we also have August 9th as Indigenous Peoples Day. So what they're really trying to do, it's not that we don't have that day to acknowledge these kinds of people, it's that they want to replace Columbus Day with this. This also has a hearing tomorrow. So this has a hearing tomorrow at 3 p.m. And so we're going to talk about that. This is how we're going to be able to move forward. There's 4 ways to participate in a hearing. Number 1, you can attend in person. Now, anybody who attends in person, you are my hero. You're a rock star, because that's all the way out in Carson City, Nevada. A lot of people like to think that Las Vegas is our capital, but they are wrong. It is not. It's actually Carson City. So if you go up to 401 South Carson Street, you can attend the hearing in person. Now, for all of us who are stuck down here in Las Vegas, you can attend video conference at 7120 Amigos Street. That is off of the 215 and Warm Springs. Yes, so totally awesome building. The last legislative building was located all the way down on Washington, and this one is state of the art. It's super nice. They've got like a little cafe in there, and they've got a gift shop in there. It's so cool. It's like you are at the Capitol. So it is a lot of fun to go down there. Now, if you wanted to attend either of these, either in person or video conference, there is a sheet that you're going to have to sign into. And so we're going to talk about this sheet just so that we can walk you through it, prepare you guys for it. So this is going to be located right at the front door. It's on the table. And you're going to fill out your name. Pretty basic. That next session right there where it says representing, you can leave that blank unless you are there to actually represent somebody or an organization. You could be there with Battle-Born Republican Women, or you can be there with CCRP, or whatever that looks like. I am not the organization. Remnant Impact's not that organization. And here's why. It means more to our legislators to hear from their constituents than it does to the organizations. So if you put down Battle-Born Republican Women or CCRP or whatever other, no, and I'm not discounting Battle-Born Republican Women, awesome, heroes over here. But what I'm just using them for an example. But what I'm saying is that our legislators are going to see, oh, they're just representing an organization, they're being paid, they're lobbyists, whatever, and they're going to move forward. It is always so much stronger and so much better when you go there as a constituent, regardless of what your organization is. If you go there as a constituent. That also includes the church. A lot of people will go there and put CRR or Calvary Red Rock, which is so cute. I love it. But you don't need to, because you're not there representing Calvary Red Rock. You're there as a constituent, right? Okay. Then, obviously, you're going to put your info in there. And any given day, depending on the committee, there's going to be multiple bills. So on that right-hand side over there, you can put whatever bills that you're there for. You could be there for all of the bills, which is totally great. Like I said, there's a cafe there, and there's gift shops, so you'll be entertained nonetheless. So you can fill out all of your bill information on the right-hand side, whether you're for them or against them, and if you decide that you want to give your testimony, if you want to speak. If you want to speak, there's also going to be this paper right here, and again, you can fill that out. Organizations that you represent is nothing. You can either leave it blank or just put that you're a constituent, period, right? Okay, so that's how you would testify in person, right? And so what happens when you're testifying in person too, when you're attending these hearings, that hearing, even though you're being video conferenced in, is set, they have an allotted time for what happens in Clark County and then what happens down here in Las Vegas. And so they'll say, oh, Las Vegas, you have 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. You'll be able to go up to the mic. You don't see anybody. You are being recorded. You have like a screen at the bottom. I didn't provide any pictures. I should have. I'm sorry. I think I do. Oh, I do, but I'll share them later. But nonetheless, you'll be able to talk. Now, you can go to these hearings and not talk, and that's okay, because a lot of the times what happens, and we actually experienced this with the assisted suicide bill, is that they gave all of the time over to Clark County, Washoe County, and then when they came down to Clark County, they gave us all of 8 minutes. So only 4 people got to talk, and we packed the room, right? We had like 30 people in there, and so when Orient Lictor was like, okay, well, who didn't get to talk down in Las Vegas? We had all of these hands going up, like, what are you talking about? Nobody got to talk down here. We got all of 8 minutes out of the 30-minute allotted oppositional time. And so just being there and being that person to either stand up or raise your hand or fill a seat, that also speaks volumes, even if you're not that person to actually speak into the microphone. Totally okay. Now, if you can't make it to a hearing, you can always call. You can call in your testimony. Every single hearing is going to have a specific ID number that they'll tell you, okay, anybody on the phone, you put in this phone number, they'll tell you when to push pound, they'll bring you through, and then you can verbally talk into the phone. That transfers over into our hearing. We can hear all of that. And not only that, but that all gets recorded and packaged into the bill. So that's an option for you as well. This got switched. That's what happened. These got switched. If you're going to be talking in person, actually, no, it didn't. Even if you're talking online, or if you're talking on the phone. There we go. Have your 2-minute pitch ready. Okay? You will get 2 minutes to talk, and you got to talk quickly. So make sure that you're able to state your name and why you oppose it. I put oppose, but you could also support it too. It's not all negative, right? Why you support or oppose it. And then you always want to close with, please represent me in opposition of, and then close it out. But you want to have that prepared and ready. The other option that you can do, and this is just as effective, and this helps speed up time, especially because if there's a lot of people, we got to get through as many people as possible in that 30-minute increment, is you just go up there and say, hi, my name is Alex, I'm a constituent of Las Vegas, and I ditto what everybody else said. And then you're done. Period. The end. That's another voice on the books, and we just saved a whole bunch of time. So just say ditto, and you'll be golden. Now, I have to talk about the things that we don't do, right? And so in the things that we don't do is we're not going to be bringing any flags or flyers or anything to raise or cause a disturbance. We're not going to wear any of the political apparel. For this particular instance at the bottom right, that shirt says Democrats fund black genocide. Our legislature is primarily Democratic. They're all Democrats. And so if you come with that kind of shirt, do you really think that they're listening to you? We only have a small period of time to make the biggest influence we possibly can, and that is going to completely distract them from anything that you have to say. Don't speak out of turn because you can get kicked out. And again, use your allotted time to speak about the bill. At the end of every hearing, there's always public comment, and so you can talk about Jesus. You can give the gospel at that point. Awesome. Everybody needs to hear it. But at the time of the hearing, that is the time to talk about the bill. Again, we only have so much time to influence, but after public comment, go for it. And then last and not least, please do not threaten your legislators. They will completely shut down. They don't want to hear it. You taint our case on everything. So just don't do that. I will say that this year it's been very nice and peaceful and professional. And the fact that it's been that way, we've been able to make so much more headway with these legislators and gutting bills and not passing bills. It's been a very cordial relationship with them, and we'd like to keep it that way. Okay, so if you can't attend, if you can't call, no worries. There's also that fourth thing that you can do, and that is to email your written testimony. So there is a certain email that is provided through the committee, whether it's ASM, HHS, which is the Assembly, Health and Human Services, or Commerce and Labor, or Elections and Legislation, etc. There's a specific email that you can email your written testimony or typed out testimony in a PDF form, and then what happens is it gets submitted as an exhibit. And in that exhibit, that exhibit also gets packaged with the bill, so it moves from house to house. But in that exhibit, this right here is, the picture right there is an example of SB 6. And that was the cloud seeding bill. SB 6 was the cloud seeding bill. So if you look down here at the bottom, SB 6, that very last one, it says opposition emails, 550 plus constituents oppose of that. So if you click on that particular link right there, that's going to come up with 550 different written emails that are packaged in the bill as opposition. Now, if you also look on here, there is no support letters either. That speaks volumes when this bill moves from house to house to house, from legislators, and they have to read through everything. This is all people. This is us. This is the way that we participate and engage in all of this. Does that make sense? Okay, so with that said, there's two other ways to participate in legislation and to make a difference. We're almost done, guys. You guys are awesome. And that one is Nellis. Now, I'm looking at the room here, and I see that you guys all might be Nellis savvy. Who's not Nellis savvy? Okay, I'm going to run through this really quick. For you guys that don't have Nellis, there's also, if you picked up that bill information sheet, the bills that we're going to be following, there is a QR code on there, and that quickly is a 3-minute tutorial that shows you how to access Nellis on your phone. Let's see. Can I do it? Maybe. Anything else I need to do back here? I am? Oh, I'm not on that one. Sorry. Okay. All right. So this is just your search engine. You're going to go to leg.state.mv.us. This is like practically my home screen page right now. To the left-hand side where it says session info, you can hover over that, and we're going to go down to the 83rd, which is the 2025 session. This right here, we're going to look at the BDR list. What was that? Okay, we're going to look at the BDR list. Again, bill draft request. This is going to be all of the bills that we're looking at. So this right here is where you can type in a certain BDR. So if you know what your BDR number is, you can type that in. If you are just exploring and you just want to see based off of keywords, you can type in keywords. Education, there's 123 BDRs for education, and etc. Let's see. Let's look at AB 101 for all intents and purposes. We're going to plug that in. That's the one that is dead, so we're just going to play with a dead bill. So once you click on whatever it is that you're looking for, it's going to bring you up to the overview page. These right here is different tabs that you can look at. So this is the overview page. We're going to look at text. And of course, this is a dead bill, so this is very prone to happen. But this is going to give you the text, and you'll be able to read all of that. Any amendments that happen, great. Those will be available here. Votes, that'll show, okay, this probably isn't a good bill. Let's go to SB 6. There we go. So this is the cloud seeding bill. So text, this is going to show you the text. It's 2 pages. It was a Senate Bill 6, and it was brought on behalf of the Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources. It'll show you the summary, so that's the summary of it, and then this is the base of it. It's 2 pages long, and all that they're asking for is $600,000 for the year of 2025 to 2026 and 26 to 27, right? Any amendments, again, you'll see here. Votes, you'll see here. Fiscal notes, meetings, and exhibits. These exhibits right here is where your emails will go. That is only one. This is 3 exhibits. And the exhibits are good too if you go through and read them, because it'll give you a better idea too of what the bill is actually saying, especially if you don't understand a lot of the jargon a lot. Anyways, with that to say, that to the top right where it says opinions, you're going to click on that right there, and it's going to pop up this page. This is where you can select your position. Do you support this bill, oppose it, or are you neutral? You can fill out all of your information, and you can submit a comment. You can choose to or not. You don't have to, but then you want to hit submit right there. You can also look at the public opinions. So out of this has 239 people who have participated in this bill, and it says that it's 97% in opposition. If you decide to leave a comment, All of these comments are anonymous. So don't be afraid to leave those comments. You can't see anything. Everybody could read the comments so we can see where everybody's at. It's been interesting and entertaining to read a lot of these comments when I'm looking through the bills, because some people get their bills, much like myself, if you can't tell by my presentation, they get them mixed up. And so while they're talking about, don't kill Fido on a cloud seeding bill, it's like, oh, poor Fido. I get entertained, but those are the small things. So that's how you do that. You could look up any of the bills. Once you come over here to the left-hand side, you can enter in a whole new bill, SB 171. Sure. And it'll pop up there. If you want to go back to looking at keywords, you can go back to legislation, drop down, and there's all bills and resolutions. And you can put in another keyword, firearm. And there's 13 results there. Does that make sense? Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to overwhelm the system with as much opposition as possible. This right here is going to be all of the most popular bills that are the most participated in bills. It takes a minute to load. That's not my computer. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's just a lot of bills. So we'll give that a minute, and then I can show you where all the fun ones are.
Alex, does an email or comment, does one have more weight than the other?
All of it. So when talking with legislators, they say that there's two, we're going to say three, but they ranked them to the highest two. Oh, here we go. Pause on that just so I can finish this, or otherwise I'll squirrel off. But talking with the legislators, the three most influential ways to influencing, talking, the way that they like to be approached is one, in person. They do like to be in person. Of course, they're all the way up in Carson City, so unless you have plans to go up there, kudos to you, you're my hero. If not, then always through email. They like having correspondence. They like hearing from their constituents. And then that third one is through Nellis, because they see everything that's going on. That's their job. They have to look at these bills. They have to see how the public is responding to these bills. They read through all of the exhibits. That's literally what we put them in for, is so that they can look at these bills, make the appropriate amendments to fit the needs of their constituents so that they can move forward. So those are the top three things that they say is the most influential to speak with them. Now, for popularity, here we go. That first one has the most, and it's about oral health. I don't know who is signing on to this one, but it's about oral health. I think they're trying to expand to where you could be licensed here, licensed there, licensed there. I didn't read too much into it. I don't know if it's a good bill or a bad bill, but that's a lot of people. 2,198 people participated, but 1,653 opposed that bill. Like I said, SB 171 was the transgender shield law. Look at that support, 1,030 versus 333. Of course it's going to pass. Who's opposing it? Not us, right? AB 101, that one's completely gutted. That one had 1,300 participants. Only 14 people supported that bill. That's how bad that bill was. It only got 14 people to support it. And so you could look through and just see what is the most participated in. What are the ones? It'll have them all ranked from, first to last. And you can see, I don't know how long that's going to take me to get all the way to the end, but you could see the ones that have zero participation in it. And if you decide that you want to click the blue hyperlink next there, just to read it and read, what the text is or the comments or whatever, of course you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, so then the second thing that I was going to add on, and I kind of touched it over here with Miss Ann, was emailing your legislators. So there's always that break from when the first house ends to when a bill gets voted on. In between that gap period right there, that's where you email your legislators. I'm going to take that back. That's where you email legislators, not just yours. Email them all. Email them all. You can put them all in a BCC link right there, and you can just email them and tell them, please vote against this bill. It does not represent me as your constituent, whatever. Because the fact of the matter is even though you're in a district, you're in an assembly district and a senate district, the fact of the matter is that you're a resident of Nevada, and you are a constituent to all of Nevada, period. So you have that opportunity to email them and try to convince them to vote for you. The more that we flood their inboxes with those is hopefully the more that we're able to influence them. Like I said, they see that, they like that, they appreciate that. Of course, they don't appreciate bad emails, so if you call them a doofus, they're not going to respond to you, right? But we can be cordial and professional and respectful. And, what is that phrase? You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. Okay? Let's be honey. Let's be sweet. All right? All right. So, all of that to say, do you guys have any questions on Nellis? I can stick around if you guys have any questions. Again, there's a quick 3-minute QR code on that bills to follow list right there. I want to just re-emphasize, I wish I could follow all of them. All of them that we're going through. 800 bills. Like I said, there's not one that's not untouched with some sort of deception or some sort of funkiness. I'm trying so hard to stay in my lane, but the purpose of learning how to utilize Nellis is because maybe you'll go on and you'll find something that's in your niche. I'm not necessarily following all of the housing stuff, but I did, put down some. But maybe you're a realtor, and maybe you want to look more into real estate and what's happening there. Maybe you're a cosmetologist. Maybe you're the dental hygienist. You can put in those keywords that affect you and see where those bills are and see how you can participate. You can see what's good for your community, your industry, your whatever, your sphere of influence, and go from there. Does that make sense? Okay. So, with all of that to say, I want to encourage you guys, if you are not on our email list, I do send out emails regularly. I send out the hyperlinks, which makes it super easy, so you can just click on it and move over so you can vote on these bills. I send out information as far as when those hearings are and et cetera. If you're not following us on Facebook or Instagram, I want to encourage you to do so because all that information is available there as well. Now, because somebody's car is being towed in the front, so if you have a car in the front, anybody have an old tan car?
It's like a tannish color. It looks like it is to me. I don't understand why it's. Look.
Okay, so while he figures that out, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
You mentioned, like, when you write to our representative to BCC others, would you not want them all to know that you're...
Okay, so the question, just for the people that are online, the question is when you're BCCing legislators, instead of letting everybody know that they're all being CC'd, I do, so when I make an email to a legislator, I actually send it to myself, so I'm the main address, and then I BCC all of the legislators because essentially they're only trying to take the emails that are from their constituents in their district, and so I conceal that, and they don't know where I live because I don't tell them where I live. I just tell them I'm your constituent, and so I email all of them, even the ones that are up north. They don't know. They don't have to know. They just know that there's a constituent that's not happy with them or is not happy with this bill. And then when that happens, not only do they not know who's who or who does this constituent belong to, the responses will come in, and I can track all of the responses on that one email. Strategy, baby. Yes, Miss Jill. Like, you want me to put it? Oh, you can have whatever you want. Are you trying? You want me to go back to it? Is that what you're asking?
No. I took some pictures. I'm just saying some of these slides will be great to amplify messages on social media, and I just didn't know if you wanted us to use your slides.
No, go for it. It's all public information, and that's why I made the disclaimer at the beginning. I didn't use any information out of integrity. It is what it is. This is, again, public information. That particular, let's see. Yeah, I'm reviewing for myself now. Golly. Look at that baby. That baby's cute.
Because that one,
And that one too.
Miller, that's really positive for next election cycle.
Which one?
The one against Brittany Miller, showing her library bill versus what Carrie wanted.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And here's the thing, you guys, when we're moving forward for, elections, you take these, golly, this thing is going to hate me, but take these guys right here, not that guy. Okay, you know where the assisted suicide was, where I broke it down, the legislators? Take that, use that. Go talk to your community members and let them know, like, hey, this wasn't a good bill, but our legislator just voted for this, right? Tell the people that are around you. Go to your community. Use that as a tool to get them out. What was it that you wanted, Jill?
It was the two slides. One was that Yeager had sponsored 20 bills, had 20 pass, and Carrie sponsored 20 and had none pass. And then the one that showed the particular library bill, the wording of Carrie's versus Brittany Miller's. Carrie's didn't get a hearing.
Maybe, Tim, can you help me before I make this thing spaz out? But yeah, all of this thank you. Yeah, all of this information, it's all available via public. This is not any sort of investigative work other than that. I read a bunch of articles to figure things out. But it's not my work. It's just work put all together. So anyways, yeah, you're available for any of that. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you need help with anything, feel free to see me, and I'll hang around. And then I also have materials, so if you did not pick up any of the materials on the table out there, feel free to pick anything up. All right, you guys have a great day. God bless.